Are you ready for more strong female protagonists in Lord of the Rings that don't need no man? What do you mean no? What do you mean Galadriel was enough? What do you mean Lord of the Rings of Power has turned you off the entire setting practically, as far as televised entertainment goes? Well, you will sit down and enjoy it, goddammit, because we're getting another animated series now. And to be fair, as usual, who knows? It could be good, but the first information is now out and, well, it is very current year. In the appendices, we learn of Helm Hammerhand and his children Hama and Heleth, who are unfortunately the wrong gender. They have peepees, you see, and so they are immediately rejected as main characters and replaced by his third child, a girl whose name we don't even know. Because of course. And his daughter, who is actually unnamed by Tolkien. That daughter, her name Hera, or whatever the word of the E with the slash above it is the protagonist of the War of the Rohirrim. As I mentioned, the other ones were the wrong gender, but don't worry, we've got a correct one lined up for you. When asked why they chose her to lead the story, Boyens replied, "Everyone else dies." And before you start complaining, because they already know that we are going to, this is already in the texts. Well, yes, that everybody else dies is true, but the exploits of this character, who is completely unknown previously, in fact, they even lead with a "don't look for in old songs because you won't find her," well, she didn't, as they have now determined. So, why? Because, of course, here's the thing. They all die is not a good argument to not focus the stories on them, because that is the point of Helm Hammerhand's story. It is to be a tragic story of war, of destruction, of loss, and near annihilation. Was it, I think it was Helm himself who, after leading countless raids against the invaders, was one day found dead after a raid, still standing upright, frozen in place, fists still balled, ready to fight. That was the point of the story. It was one of ridiculous heroism, of loss, and of going, well, quite frankly, crazy with all of that combat and the violence. But ignore that. We've got a female strong character to push. Who is Hera? For one, Boyens was going to point out they didn't want her to just be a warrior princess. Aha, we'll see about that. Instead, they took inspiration from real history, blah blah blah, Ethelfled, which, yes, she ruled for about 8 years, I think, before dying. Now, I don't know how much inspiration they are going to take from that, as they then move on to go. Described Hera as tomboyish, a young woman who is wild and vulnerable, with a character that sees her grow in a time of war. Because you can't really have Middle-earth story without war. The main conflict here is between King Helm and the Dunlending with Rohirric blood named Freka, who says he has a claim to the throne. According to Boyens, both men think with their muscles, and Freka's proposal of marrying his son to Helm's daughter is the inciting incident that begins the titular war. So, basically, strong female character of the current year design. Now, when they say tomboy, wild and vulnerable, I mean, that doesn't sound bad, but this is the current year. And people have described Rey as a tomboyish and wild and vulnerable, so we'll have to wait and see about that. And she is, of course, in a world surrounded by those damnable evil men who can't think with nothing but their muscles, and all see her as a mere tool for marriage, when she knows she could be so much more, you see. In fact, she's the only one who understands anything, I imagine. This also goes on to, what does it go here? Oh yes, according to Kamiya, the first unanimous response from the female staff regarding Wolf, which is one of the bad guys, is to make him hot. Well, as we talked about yesterday, hot men are of course entirely okay. It is impossible to sexually objectify men in the same way that it's impossible to be racist to white people. You must understand. Power plus privilege and all that other garbage. I don't think we have any pictures of Hera yet, but I do have a sneaking suspicion that there might be further similarities with Fable 4 on the horizon. Especially as, let's see here, yes, here we go. We watch Hera riding a horse to the top of a hill and feed a giant eagle. Now, I hope when they say giant eagle, they mean actually just a giant eagle and not a great eagle, because those aren't just goddamn birds. They're closer to, well, angels than just regular birds, but details. But more importantly, later, another clip shows the politics at play at Edoras. Can you guess? Let me hear you guess. What kind of politics do you think are going on at Edoras? What do you imagine? Is it going to be things like, oh, the harvest was bad, or the Dunlendings are invading, we can't resist them, or about, the eternal schisms at court, or how to best respond to the invasion? No, of course not. That would be ridiculous. That would be idiotic. Don't you know it is the current year? And so the discussion of politics at Edoras is a Lord of Rohan wanting to erase the history of a group of female warriors and banner women to the king. Because of course. Now here's the thing. In the movie, there was the mention of shield maidens, or, well, one shield maiden in particular. That was also in the book, with, of course, I do believe, here we go, yep. So, the shield maiden. There appears to be precisely one of them in the Lord of the Rings books in total, but there is a mention of how women went to war alongside the men in a previous conflict in a darker age and so on. Now, that can mean multiple things, either because it's a dark age, out of sheer desperation, so anyone and everyone who could hold a weapon was thrown onto the front line, but that didn't happen at Helm's Deep, and that was a pretty desperate situation, everything considered, although you could argue that they had too much faith in their fortifications, and so they didn't understand the true danger they were in. Alright, fair enough, I suppose. Or it could be like the barbarian invasions in our own times, as there are many historical records of the women going into battle alongside the men, or, well, more correctly, behind the men. The various barbarian hordes invading Rome, for example, would have the women setting up the cargo and the wagons, etc., behind the battle lines. The men would be in front of them. This to encourage them to not retreat, because everything they owned was right over yonder, along with their family, their wives, their loved one, their children, etc., as it was a bit of a do-or-die situation. As in front of them were the Romans and whatever else they came across, and behind them, even more unfortunate things. So, when they say that, it's very unlikely that there was a long-forgotten army of warrior women and banner women to the king, that somebody just like, oh, you see, in my infinite misogyny, I have decided to wipe these out from history. This is the Afrocentric worldview, isn't it? It's like, oh no. Totally back in the day, we were warriors. We were kings in yo, bro. No, in all due likelihood, history wasn't falsified specifically to write your ass out of it. In all due likelihood, history simply is as it is. Tough break, I do suppose. And obviously, again, it will be the politics of the current year. Now that alone convinces me that, oh, what was it here? A prelude of things to come. Anyone wanna bet against me on this one? I say that Hera is going to go out and she's gonna recruit a bunch of warrior women and she's gonna come to the rescue of the people of Rohan, and she will ride to their rescue with banners blaring at the head of a bunch of banner women. Anybody want to bet against that? Anyone? I'll give you really good odds. No, I don't think anyone would be quite so stupid. And of course, that is the issue. So this is set to be very much so one of those good old-fashioned current year television shows. And they're also going to be including oliphants, incidentally. Now, the oliphants are pretty far south of Rohan, and I don't think they have a particular, connection to the Dunlendings, but oh well, there you go. And hey, Oliphant shows up and goes like trumpeting for rule of cool, I guess. I don't necessarily mind, and goddamn, see, the anime part of it does encourage me at least a little bit, because hopefully they will be taking some lessons from the actual anime industry when it comes to this, as of course you can have badass, powerful, strong female characters. Hell, we've got the recent example of Lucy, of course, and a little cyber lolly. excellent examples. But the moment you introduce Western political nonsense into this, your strong female character is likely to be turned into the current year version of strong female character, which is Rey, a soulless, uncharismatic, terrible little character whose only defining feat is the ability to do anything and everything at the drop of a hat without any training, preparation, or any sort of, talent for it, for that matter. It doesn't sound good for the War of the Rohirrim. It sounds actually outright awful. But I guess we'll have to wait and see. So what is that? It is the litany of the hopeful. Oh, it might not be shit, even after having been buried in awful and feces the last 17 times you say it. Cling to hope. It is, as they say, the last fine light at the bottom of the shit barrel. Until next time, thank you all very much for watching, and I hope to see you all again soon. With better news? Well, with funnier news anyways, as today we will be having a little bit of a double feature. Indeed. Have a good day.